So what we're going over is listing to closing success system. So kind of from the beginning to the end. And I think a lot of us, we struggle, especially when we're getting started, to know exactly how this process works. And it makes us uncomfortable starting a new project, starting it, especially with new customers, if you're new to the business and you haven't seen this from start to finish, or you've only done one start to finish and you're nervous about how the process works. So I'm going to go through this and give you some ideas and some checklists that you can use and some ideas in how we work the listings here at the brokerage with Investing in Florida. So why great listing agents win? So why is it that 10% of the agents here in Florida are making all of the money, and I'd say 20%, and 80% do maybe one transaction a year? Why is that? So I'm going to go through this process and how you can become that 20%. So the top listing agents, they control the transaction from start to finish, set expectations early, solve problems before they occur, communicate constantly with everybody in the transaction. And I'm going to go over how that works. Protect their commission. You hardly ever hear them say, oh, well, I'll give some away just to make this close. And create clients for life. So keep getting them to come back. Let's get this over here. So pre-listing presentation. So I'm going to go through it. Now you're starting with a listing. You got a listing. You're getting started with this, with a new process here. And here's a checklist that you can write down. So seller qualification checklist. So you're going through this. You've already printed off from Canva your presentation, which either you can have us make or you can just make and have on hand at any time. Most of it's write-inable, so you can write in when you're doing the open houses, things like that. But mainly it's your bio and information about how the listing is going to happen. So you printed that off and you're talking with them and you're going to find out these basic information. Before you take the listing, you're going to find out why are they selling? Where are they moving to? So you know if they're going to be moving local or to another state. The desired timeline. If you may think, oh, they want to sell this right away, hurry up. Or they may be waiting for a house to sell. Or they may be going, okay, well, I'm going to put it on now knowing it's going to sit on the market for 6 months. You don't know until you ask. You want to find out what their mortgage payoff is. So you know maybe they're right at the cap, so you can't come down any lower. So you need to know what that mortgage payoff is. Any known issues with the property. This is huge and don't be afraid to ask this with a new listing. Just say, hey, do you know of any issues that you've had? Yes, we had this leak in the roof, or yes, there's a plumbing issue, but we're fixing it now, yada, yada. HOA restrictions, making sure you know the HOA restrictions. And when you do hear about that, and before you do the listing, get the HOA contact, all that information that you need for them too. And if there is existing tenants, because of course we work with investors. But then you want to give yourself a scale. You want to say, are they motivated to sell like right away, or are they going to take a little while to sell? And so you can give yourself a rating on this. Anything below a 7, you need to start making sure that you keep calling and make sure everything's running smoothly as you're doing this listing. Make sure they're still motivated to sell. Okay, so verify the seller's next move. So you want to know, have they already identified a new home? Where are they going? If they're moving out of town, of course, you can refer them to an agent out of state. So say they want to move to New York. We have agents that we work with in some states, and I would say most states we have somebody that you can work with. So get with us and we'll assign you the agent up there. And when you do, you can get 30% of the transaction as a referral agent. So you can get 30% if your seller is moving out of state, if you pass them to an agent that you trust. If they're moving in state, of course you can help them. Do they need the proceeds from the sale to buy? So this may be a big hurdle. So you want to find out, do they need to sell their home before they buy? Well, what if you help them sell their home and then you can put them in a corporate rental so they don't have to worry about buying that new home wherever it is. So you can help them by putting them in a corporate rental during that period, and then you actually handle. So a lot of people do not want to go, they just stay in a hotel, they don't want to do an Airbnb because they don't know when the closing date is. If we are the listing agent, the buying agent, we know when the closing date is, and we can make sure that they have housing. So that solidifies more of your buyer and seller, that gives you more of a reason to list or buy with you. And is the time or price the main factor? Understanding this will help you with the negotiation process throughout the transaction. So if somebody comes in and says, well, we can close in 15 days with cash, but we're 50,000 lower, you would know that your seller is interested in that. Or it's going to take us a little bit of time to close, but we want to offer you a highest price offer. Then you would know how to handle this during the negotiation process. But the next thing is, say now you have a buyer. So now that was the process of how to find out about your seller, get listing, get things going. But say now that you have a buyer and they send in a pre-approval letter. Okay, I'm going to go through this with you real quick. So if you have the buyer says they come in, now how are you going to help your seller the best way you know how? You're going to have offers that come in, especially right now. You're getting offers that come in from wholesalers that are really nickel and diming, 60 cents a dollar. And you want to be able to represent this properly to your clients. So say you have somebody that comes in, they're a little bit lower on the offer, but they submit a good offer. You look and you see, okay, you're going to look at their pre-approval letter because they're going to send you an offer, a pre-approval letter, and if they're a good agent, they're going to send you a buyer letter saying why they want the house and information about them so you can present that to the seller. So you want to look very hard at the pre-approval letter. You want to contact the lender. So you want to contact them and you want to say, is this a pre-qualification or a pre-approval? So there's two different things. One, they submit a credit report and they state what their income is. And sometimes they just state their credit score. They're going to get just a basic pre-approval letter. A pre-qual is a lot better because you're going to go ahead and turn this into, well, they turned it into having turned in their W-2s. They've already submitted all their documents, so they are ready to go. So there's two different ways to send in a pre-approval. But you can do that too by calling the lender and saying, hey, I got a pre-approval letter. Have they turned in their W-2s, their taxes, or credit report has been stated. You find out where they are in the process. Then find out, what is their down payment? Is this going to meet, so it's okay to really dig in with this lender. Are they going to meet the qualifications to close on this loan? What is their estimated closing cost? Do they have that in assets that they can close? You want to find out if they're going to close. And then you'll work with the lender to find out, do you have an online system that I can watch as the process moves forward? What are you waiting on? Are you waiting on their taxes? Are you waiting on their new pay stubs? What are you waiting on so we can get closing? So that's something as a listing agent you want to stay on top of. And just find out what the likelihood is for you to close from that lender. So that's the basic thing you want to do. So, but let's go back. I'm sorry, this kind of jumped back and forth, but now you're back in the pre-listing phase. So when you're in the pre-listing phase and you're getting ready to go forward with this, the first thing you want to do is you walk the house. So you've already done your pre-listing, you've gone through getting set up, and they're saying, okay, let's go ahead and list. You've already signed the listing agreement. Now you're going to move forward and you're going to walk the house. You want to identify any issues before what the buyer said maybe there's a leak in the roof or anything like this. You want to make sure that nothing gets out of hand so that you can avoid any cancellations in the end, any problems with the rehab or anything like that they can come back to you on. What I personally like to do is send a inspector out prior, which I'll go into this a little bit, but you want to send an inspector out. It's usually about $200, but it's going to save them sometimes a few $1,000. Because they'll come in and they'll say, like on one of the projects we were just in, okay, these around the sinks, they need GFIs. Okay, well, that's a $25 part at Home Depot and a handyman to throw those in. If you get into the contract and the new buyer asks you to repair that with a certified electrician, you are going to be paying more closer to $1,000 to $2,000 to have them come in, or a double tap. And I don't mean a handyman handling the electrical, but if you know how to do it as an owner, that's something they can fix very quickly versus having a certified electrician come in and have it stamped and have the inspector come back out, have pictures, all that stuff. Just get an inspector in there first, check, make sure everything looks good. I would say, coming from somebody that works a lot of listings, I would say the main things you're looking for is anywhere around water, that you have GFIs, any double taps. You want to see how old the roof, the HVAC, the plumbing, the electrical, and the water heater are. Go ahead and take pictures so that when you have a listing, people ask you, how old's the roof? How old's the HVAC? How old's this? You can, on the HVAC, you can have a picture showing the age, the plumbing, the age. You find out what the permits were. Get that all ahead of time so that you don't have to worry about doing this to each agent that comes to you. You can upload that on MLS and then you don't have to worry about all those questions. Also review if there were any insurance claims. We did have a project once where we didn't know, we're trying to sell a property. We didn't know that they had an insurance claim on the foundation. They never disclosed to us what it was, but probably sinkhole insurance claim, because there was a lot of those. Even though there maybe wasn't a big sinkhole, they did an insurance claim on it to maybe fix their driveway. And that will really affect your listing. So get all the updates. What I like to do is talk to the seller and say, can you send me, just write down on a piece of paper all the updates you've done. New flooring, new HVAC, new everything. Write that down so you can make sure you're selling this property the highest value as possible. And of course, any issues, and that way you know how to handle them when it comes into the negotiation. So then we go to the pricing. The pricing for always for the use a CMA. So always use a CMA. Don't just assume that, well, this guy's selling for $550, I'm going to do the same thing. Because when you use a CMA, you can really look and see how the properties are set up, and newer, if they're remodeled or rehabbed, and you can really compare. So use active listings, pending listings, sold listings, and you can use expired listings. You can see what they are, but just review them. You don't need to put those in the CMA. But you want to analyze the square footage. And sometimes what I like to do is take an Excel sheet and write out the properties and the square footage and what it's sold for. So you can use that just to show them what the average would be on the square footage. If they need a little rehab, it's going to be on the lower side. If it's fully updated, maybe on the higher side. So that's what the CMA really doesn't tap into as well. If you just throw one together, you need to really analyze it and say, okay, well, this one has updated flooring, bathroom, kitchen. So you can add numbers to the CMA for that property. So it makes the property's value very accurate. And that's going to be close to what the appraiser is going to be at. Appraiser is only going to use active and sold listings. They use a little bit active, mostly sold listings. So you really want to tap on those. Expired and pending, they're okay. I'm sorry, pending is definitely good, but the expired ones, you don't see that too much. And if it goes past a year, they don't really use those either. But kind of get an estimate of the CMA and find out what their real goal is, because they may be too high and you may have to explain and show them what the other properties are to get closer to your number. Because right now in this market, you want to price it to be selling and not to just test the market, because otherwise it's just going to take a long, long time to sell. And right now things are taking a long, long time to sell. So before going live, before you go live, these are the steps that you really want to tap on. You want to tap on getting these things. So this is a really good checklist to make sure that you have everything, because sometimes we're like, okay, we got the description, we got the photos, let's go. And you forget some of the other things. And really the first day, it's so important to get, when you first send this out, if it's done professionally, it really hits the market well versus having to come back, adjusting photos, adjusting this, adding that. people have already gotten their automations, already got their email autos to them. So they've already seen the property. They're not going to notice that you changed the floor plan or you added a floor plan or you changed something. So it's really important before you go live, you have all of these steps set up. So professional photos, drone photos, if you need drone videos and photos, I always recommend getting the videos as well. We do the drones in-house. So if somebody just gives you the photos, the drone photos, we can also do videos for your website, and I'll show you what that looks like as well. But get a floor plan. There is an app that we use, so I'll write that down to send to you or put it at the bottom of this description. We use an app that you can make a floor plan. It's very inexpensive. It does take a while. I don't know where they send it to get the plan completed, but you get this and it looks really nice. And properties sell, they tend to sell a lot more if it has a floor plan than if it doesn't. I want to say it was 20% higher rate with a floor plan because people can actually see how it's laid out. You want to get your MLS description completely finalized, property features, all the new things they've added, things like that. Get your sign out there. Get your for sale sign, because even if your thingy is going to sell fast, get that out there. It's marketing for you, and also it helps the people come and see the property. Get your lockbox installed. You can use of course, the box from GTAR, or you could just use a lockbox. You can go to Amazon. You can get a group of them for pretty inexpensive. I like doing that because then it helps people to, if they do not pay for the GTAR automated access, then they struggle getting in. So if you have a lockbox, it just opens it up to more. And you can use showing time that gives you the same exact reports as the other ones with GTAR as well. So it's a good option just to do a lockbox. Make sure you have your showing instructions set up and in showing time. But what I would really highlight to do is to also make sure that you have your showing instructions set up on your text, so that all you have to do is press a few set up, and then it'll go out to everybody and give them all the showing instructions. So you can easily text everybody, have that set up so that you can automate sending those out. If somebody texts you and says, hey, we want to go see this house, you can just text it to them. It says, this is the lockbox code. Please make sure to turn off all the lights, lock all the doors. Thank you for showing, yada, yada. So making sure you have that automated. Then also get the forms that you need. So get the seller disclosures, the HOA disclosures, the lead paint disclosures if you need to, the condo, all those things signed and uploaded on MLS. So before you go live, get that on MLS and set up. And so when you do that, when you do the MLS entry, so you get that set up on MLS, they now have a process where you can do coming soon. So back just like 2 months ago, and prior to that, once you get it on MLS, it has to go live immediately. Once you sign your listing agreement, you have to go live immediately, which makes things very tough because you may sign a listing agreement and you have all this process. As a listing agent, half of your hard work goes before you even list it. So you may get the listing agreement, the photography, you may be decluttering the house, cleaning the house, the lawn, getting all that set up, and then you go and put it on MLS. So they do make this now where you can do it coming soon. So you can have it set up in MLS, have it coming soon. So it goes to all of the real estate agents, not out to the public, but it says it's coming soon. So people know that it's out there. And some people are shopping that way specifically just to get more, to get it before it goes out to the market. But you can put it in there, get everything set up, get all your documents set up, and then you go live. You can get it set up and not go live yet, and then get it set up and then go coming soon, and then go active. So the text replacement is huge, and that's what I was talking about by having your showing instructions on there. So going on to the showing instructions and having the text replacement. Does everybody know how to do the text replacement? I think I've showed that, but okay, good. And also it's on one of our videos too, just to make sure you can do it. But in the text replacement, I usually do, say I'm selling a property, say it's on Emma Street. I write Emma 1, maybe that's my code. When I press that on my phone, it's going to automatically say, "Thank you for showing the house. The lockbox number is this. Please give me any feedback. We're very interested in any help that you can provide. Also, please lock up the doors, turn off all the lights, make sure everything's secure. And again, thank you for showing." So something like that's a long one. Please contact me if you have any questions. And then also I'll send them a link to the website. And so if you have a listing, this is what we can do for you. We can set this up. This is one of our listings on 10th. We set this up where it has a home button. This just clicks to the listing on MLS. This is kind of cool. Gives you information about the area. So if somebody's looking from out of town and you send this to them, it's going to tell them a little bit about the area in Seminole Heights. If you want to request a viewing, it'll go right to your calendar. This one I just have set up for an agent. So you can go through here. They can set up a showing or just a regular contact us. But on the home, you come through here and it gives you the description that you would see on MLS, pictures, highlights about the area. These are pictures that we would have on MLS already, so that's where we're getting it from. Highlights of some of the areas, some trip advisors. So we always get the 5 stars, put those on there. Frequently asked questions that you get. How close are you downtown, and all that information. So this we have as a template for you. So all you have to do is tell us and say, "Hey, I'm listing this property. This is the address. This is how much, and these are the photos," and we will develop this for you. Come take a look at it, and you may say, you know what, instead of highlighting Angry Chair Brewing, highlight this one because this is what everybody likes, or something like that, because we're just going through TripAdvisor and getting those. So we make this for you, for every one of our agents, for every listing, because this is huge, because we send this out, and this is what I mean by text replacement. I'll put in here, I put in 10th 5, and boom, there's the domain. So all I have to do is type that in and it goes right to it. So I have that saved so that I can send this to investors. I also send it to reverse prospects quickly just by texting this out there really fast. So let's get back to this here. So you'll have that property website. You get your social media posts, get those started. And before I used to say, "Hey, contact us, we'll make you a post for social media." Now I say, contact ChatGPT. They do so much of a better job. So make your social media posts really quickly. Get maybe 5 in line so you can keep posting this in the first few weeks that you have the listing. Get an email blast set up and contact us if you want us to send it out, especially to all of our investors, to get it out there. We also have a huge list of realtors that we've worked with in the past. We have over 15,000 realtors that are in our database, but I would say about 2,000 that we're constantly working with, and those are the top agents that we've worked with and see things close. So we can also send it directly to them so they get notified that this is one of our properties, because they like working with us. So hopefully they have the buyer to connect. And then we do the reverse prospecting. I do have a video on that if you want to know about that, but those are basically the buyer agents that have a buyer that sent them the property through their automated emails. So they had a buyer that your home checked all the boxes, and you're sending them, you're able to see that your buyer agent has somebody interested in your home. So you can do that, send out an email to them. Schedule a broker open. I would normally do this before you do your first open house. Now, what is a broker open? There's a few things. There's a broker open. I like to help out too, bring our vendors, get everybody there just to kind of get things going. But what a broker open is for is to get other brokers and agents, real estate agents in the area, to come to the house to give real feedback, to say, "Hey, this house, it's a little overpriced." And you want to have sheets there too that give feedback sheets. We have some in the office if you want some, or you can just print them offline. But just get them and have people, other agents and other brokers say, "Well, this is beautiful home. I think you're underpriced. I think this is going to go really fast." And then and you can give it to your seller and say, "This is what other real estate agents and brokers are saying, that maybe, like, say this one was overpriced. Do you want to come down a little bit before we really go really splat this out there to the media, to the marketing, and that'll help you get some backup for your seller. And then schedule your open houses, and we can send it out to the investors in the database. And then make sure that you're contacting your seller weekly and say, hey, I had 3 showings. This was their feedback. And always request feedback after somebody leaves. Just do that as a text replacement too. Just remember to text them, or use Showing Time that sends out reminders, and say, hey, that it's not, we didn't have too many showings. Things are really slow right now. Whatever it is, even if it's bad information, make sure you're connected with your seller. Okay, so now we're going to go to time management. So now we're back into contract. So now that was all the pre-process of working with the seller. Now you're under contract. And this is where a lot of agents are nervous of getting to this step because they're not sure how this process works. So what you can do is you can create a transaction timeline yourself, and you want to do it right away. So you know exactly where it is. Get all these times on your calendar notified, or you can get a TC to do it. I'm going to show you what our TC looks like on this one. Oh, it got reset. Hold on just a second. Let's do this. Right here. Let's use this one. And this is one that she just got started. We just get in a contract. I sent it to Leah. She knows that we're under contract. This is the first email that goes out. This goes to usually to the owner. It should be the beginning here. It goes to the owner, the title, the lender. It goes to all the people that's involved. And it just says, basically, these are quick reminders just to introduce yourself. And these are the times. And this is the best thing. If you want to do this yourself, I have this form set up on our forms on our agent portal. You can use this as a template, but you can send this out. You want to send this out to the lender, the title, the seller or buyer's agent, whoever you're working with. Get this all out there to everybody, and to the seller and to the buyer. You want to give them the dates, and then also your TC will put this on your calendar, or you put it on your calendar with notifications and reminders to make sure you don't miss any of these dates. You include who the title company is. Here's a brief description of the closing process. There's 3,000 in here, the inspection period, the appraisal, prep closing. There's utilities if you want them to help you with the utilities, and the final walkthrough. So it's basically just streamlining this whole process for you. So it's going through this, and then what her next step is, or your next step is, the buyer will be wiring $3,000 to escrow, because that's what your contract says. So, and Michelle firsthand figured this out, that she didn't hire a transaction coordinator, and it passed the date. They didn't put money in escrow. They went through the inspection period and they pulled out. Well, they had no money in escrow. In this case, it didn't matter because they would have received their escrow funds back. So no harm, no foul. But they have a deadline. They have a deadline to deposit their escrow. And if they do not deposit their escrow, they're falling out of contract. So you need to make sure they are. So when, say they have, this was their deadline, $3,000, you need to keep getting in touch with the escrow. Have they turned this funds in with title? Have they turned their escrow money in? And you need to make sure, and then get a receipt. So all those little things Leah helps us with. And I'd rather, and for the top agents, the ones that are doing multiple deals or doing multiple projects, hire a transaction coordinator, because they're going to continue contacting them. Hey, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this? And I'd rather them do this than you doing this, because you need to be out there working on new deals, instead of making sure all this in the background works. So I do like doing that. So that's what they'll set up, or you set up. So you want to get your escrow deposit due. You want to find out the deadline, the inspection period deadline, the financing period deadline, the appraisal deadline, when the insurance binding is done. And if, say, you get down to when the insurance is supposed to be bound and you're not on top of it, it delays. And sometimes if you're not hassling them, like, hey, not hassling, because you definitely don't want to hassle them because they'll never get it done for you. But if you're contacting them to say, hey, how's the binding going? How's the inspection, the insurance binding? How's it looking? Will it be done by the scheduled deadline? Well, I think it'll be done. I'll make sure it's on my top of my plate. I'll get this done by the date. Or I totally forgot about this. I didn't have a reminder says the insurance company. And now we're getting close to the closing date. It's not done. They need an extra 2 to 3 days to close because they need their insurance bound. So you get into that. So if you need to remind all these people of the deadline. So that's a constant reminder. Title commitment, HOA approval, get everything done. So those are all the basic things. So as a listing agent, you're not required to be there for the inspection, technically, and the appraisal will go into that. You're not technically required to be there, but you need to be the one that is the third party facilitating, making sure everybody is on time. That is your main job as the seller's agent. Make sure these things are getting on time so you can close smoothly. Because it may not be a big deal if they close a week later, or it could mean another mortgage payment for your seller. So they could lose $2,000, not lose, but that could cost them $2,000 out of their pocket. So there's many things why you want to keep the deadline on top. So you want to make sure these are done. So either you or the TC need to that's your main job in these things, along with negotiating. And then the final walkthrough. And I'll go through a few of these steps real quick. So the inspection period. So the inspection period comes and they want to look through it. You do want to attend if possible during the inspection, because as an inspector will tell you, you have a buyer's agent inspector and you have a seller agent inspector, and they will do what you tell them. So if the buyer agent hires the inspector, that's no problem. One thing you can do is share your inspection from prior. When the seller already hired the inspector, you can say, yes, this is an inspection that we had prior to listing. And when your inspector goes out there, you can show this to them too, so that it'll help get this process going. Because they may hire a buyer inspector, and the buyer inspector is going to go through and just nitpick everything because they're wanting to give them some negotiation power to bring the price down. Seller's inspector is going through it saying, oh, this looks wonderful. Oh, this is great. It'll sell just for the right price. So that's the way that real estate works right now. And they try not to, and I'm not putting inspectors down at all, but that tends to be the direction. They're working for their client. They are hired by their client. They're working for their client. So you want to be there as representing the seller, just to be there. And if someone says, yeah, what is this crack here? You can explain, well, they had a little leak in the past. It's all been fixed. And then it's no big deal. Or they see a big crack there and they say, oh, the house is going to fall down. The foundation's bad. And yeah, you need to just tear this thing apart. So it's a big difference. So you want to make sure that you're there if you can to help this. And your biggest thing is just to keep the transaction moving forward, keeping it together. You may get in a little, well, no, that's actually this. And you don't need to do that. You're just trying to be there to be the negotiator through the process, to keep the deal together. So then you come up with a negotiation period. Now we're talking about, they send back a repairs list, and the repairs list usually are safety issues, major system failures, structural concerns, and then of course cosmetics. So they send you an itemized repairs list, and I'm finding that inspectors back in the day, they wouldn't give you a repairs list, but they're giving you, the last few years, they give you a repairs list and it has like 55 items on it. And some of them are major issues. The AC is not sending out the right amount of air, or there's a crack in the foundation. These are something we should look at. But then they say there's a crack, there's a little scratch on this wall, and on the the door handle, there's a little jimmy in it, or the window, there's a scratch on the window. It's not broken, but scratched. I'd take a look at it. All this stuff, and you're like, seriously, come on. I'm selling as is. This house was built in 1920. There's going to be little blemishes. So what you're going to find is you have to go through there, and you and the seller go through and say, okay, well, what matters to the 4-point? Because really the only thing that's holding them back from buying the house are the major repairs. So you could go in, and there's some sellers that say, well, I'm not fixing anything. I'm selling as is. But the problem is, then you have to sell it for cash, because the insurance company will only bind if the 4-point is cleared. So that's something you need to discuss with your seller. I understand you're selling as is, but we have to get your 4-point cleared, or the loan is not able to close because your insurance isn't able to bind. So here are the few items that I would recommend doing and it is, get the hot water tank working properly. There's a double tap on the electrical or the GFIs I was talking about. A few of those items are needed to get the insurance bound. But other than that, the little blemishes, you can say, oh no, it's, unless it's something that the seller really, and they want to fix, that's fine. But those are not, cosmetic issues are not needed for lending. So options, the seller repairs. You could also give credit at closing. So if you have a house that the owner says, you know what, why don't I just give a credit for the flooring instead of fixing it? Because then you guys can pick what you want. So you can get a credit at closing, price adjustment, or the buyer accepts as is. So, but the basic thing you want to do as a real estate agent is just keep the deal together. So work together. If he says, nope, I don't want anything to do with this, just try to explain to them that the loan needs to happen. If they're saying, well, I am not buying this house because I see that somebody wrote with crayon on this wall, I'm like, well, it's a blemish. That's not a big issue, and it won't take very long just to paint that one. So kind of going back and forth, you want to preserve that deal. You don't want to just throw it away. So you want to try to help as much as you can to get it closed. The other one is appraisal management. There's not too much you want to do here. You've already made your CMA, but you do want to go back to the CMA and you want to update it, make sure everything is up to date. Give that to the appraiser. You can meet them there. That does always help. When you meet people, you see them, you greet them, they're more apt to work for you. If you have an appraiser that you just email the comparables, you want to email them the upgrades list, any new features that they have in the house. And if you do have multiple offers, send that to them because it shows that, that price is sustainable, that is a good price. People are buying it for that price. But that's only if that is the case. But if you email it to them and then you have to go back, because maybe the appraiser missed a few properties that would help the value go up, you could ask them to come back and readjust their value. So you can do that. A lot of people don't know that. You can email the appraiser and say that, be nice about it because they don't have to, but you go back to them and say, hey, I see that you appraised it for this value. Did you account for this, this, and this? I didn't see that in the appraiser, and you need to make a really good reasoning. So you really need to do your research on it. Make sure you have the comparable properties that they didn't use. Make sure, especially like if you're going from a regular appraisal to a gross rent multiplier, you can have them do that. But if you meet them at the property, they already meet you, you guys have a good rapport, they're more apt to help you change. If you email it to them, they're less likely. So meeting them there at the property helps. They're going to be there for 2-3 hours or however long they want to take. You don't have to be there that whole time, but it is good for you to stop by and just to meet them. Okay, so now you've done the appraisal, you've gone through the inspection, you're going through this deal. And one thing I do like to do is give milestone congratulations to your sellers. I know it's a little, especially if you're doing luxury. If you're doing luxury, sometimes agents will send them something like a box of chocolates. Hey, congratulations, you passed the appraisal, everything's moving forward. That's when you're up in the $1 million properties that you're selling. In the 200,000, yeah, you can send them a text, say congratulations, you've made it through the appraisal, everything's looking good. But now you're on to the financing follow-up. So now you're gonna make sure you want to at least do weekly lender check-ins. Some lenders have a portal so you can see how everything's going on, but you want to make sure the loan is still going good. What are the outstanding conditions? Are they needing to do some, turn in W-2s? Did they buy a new truck and their DTI is crazy? You need to find this out so you know what is going on. And then of course it's appraisal complete. You want to find out, and you are able to call the appraiser, but it's not a good look and the appraiser gets frustrated. So I'd always call the lender and just say, how's the appraiser going? How's the appraisal going? Is everything looking okay? Did it turn in? Usually it's 2 to 3 days. So that usually comes in. Any concerns so that you're not stuck later trying to figure out how you're going to close. See if you can help in any way. And then you need to follow up with title and HOA review. So title commitment, see if it's been received, make sure the liens have been identified and paid off or closed. Any open permits, make sure they've been closed, make sure they have been addressed. These are all stuff that title handles, but you just want to be on top of it. They're going to send you in for like emails every once in a while. Hey, there's still a permit open, or there's a tax lien that still needs to be paid. They're going to send you this, and you just want to send back, hey, is everything looking good? How's it going? Has the stopple been ordered? Everything been cleared? Everything looks good. So just keeping in touch with them. A lot of times I know McKenna's worked with a TC and stuff, and she sees all these texts going back and forth. She's like, oh no, what are we doing here? Are they asking me to do something? They're just going through this process because your TC is contacting them and saying, hey, I just want to make sure this is closed and this is closed. Do we have any problems? They're going through those steps that if you have the time, do it. If you don't and you're looking for that next project, then have them make sure they're doing these follow-ups and follow-throughs. Okay, the last thing, okay, you're going to the closing table. You have closing table in 48 hours. So you're ready to get everything done. You want to turn in your DA too, which I should go through real quick. But you turn in your DA and you look at your HUD, you pull a copy of the HUD, you fill out your DA, you turn in to us, you have 48 hours to close. So what you're going to do, I'll go into the DA right after this, but when you go for your final walkthrough, even though the walkthrough is spelled funny, you go through and you verify that the property is still in good condition. Nothing's changed. We had somebody go ready to go to closing table, but when they moved their furniture out, they banged a window and they broke it. If you didn't do a final walkthrough, you would have closed, you would have been done, and then you realize, oh gosh, that the window is broken. We had one recently, the window was broken the whole time, but it could happen at the very end, and you want to make sure that's taken care of because you purchased the house at the time that you signed the agreement, not at the time that you're closing. So you want to make sure everything's still in the same working order and that the refrigerator's still there, the washer and dryer's there. That happened recently. Make sure that they didn't take something they should have left because it's not malicious. Sometimes they just forget. So just make sure everything is functioning, make sure the utilities are functioning, make sure that everything is working good. And a lot of times they say, do we need to do this? It's really, really important because this could bring you to lawsuit if you close and everything's gone. So you need to make sure that this is something that you handle. And I just want to touch the biggest thing about the listing is you're a babysitter. Better a glorified babysitter or a psychologist. Through this whole transaction, you want to make sure that this is one of their biggest transactions. They're struggling. They're emotional about it. And then they come in and this guy says, they've lived in this forever. This is a beautiful home. And then the buyer comes in and says, this is just, after the inspection, the rug just looks gross. And so the seller is going to go, it's just a rug. I've been living in it forever, and they get emotional about it. You need to be the one that's not emotional. Step away, and you're the one that's just keeping the process together. You're the one that's coming in and saying, I understand. It's just they're probably a little nervous about this too. So if we can, I'll communicate with them and we'll work back and forth. And sometimes don't share their emotion from the other side. Just say, hey, they had a question about this. Not the emotion. Keep the emotion out. That's the biggest thing. So I did want to touch on the DA before I move forward. So when you're in the last steps of you're getting ready to go to the closing table, one thing that you do need to do, it's right at the top of our agent portal. Click on request a DA. So you want to go and request this DA. It's just a form. It's a simple form. You put your name on top, the title company, and the reason I need the title company is for the end of the year for your 1099s to make sure if there's any questions I can reach out to them per transaction. The property address, the date of closing, the price, the transaction fee, which is $395. If you're paying for it, click on this. If you're not going to pay for it, leave it open. And because you leave that open and that charges the buyer for the transaction fee. If you have a transaction coordinator, what is your net commission? What is your split? And what is your after the split? And then with your transaction fee. So you fill all these in. These actually add up, so you don't have to add those up. But you put those in there and then make sure you upload your HUD. It could be your estimated HUD, your pre-Alta, Doesn't have to be the final because you haven't got to the closing table, but just upload your HUD or Alta, because the buyer needs to have it 3 days before closing. So that also verifies that all this information is correct. Then I go ahead and sign it. I'll send that over to the title company, and that's what gets you paid right from the title company. So you can get that done. Okay, we're almost done. We're almost done. So, because we only have 10 minutes left. So just managing the emotions, like I was saying, make sure you just keep the education going with them. I would say that's my biggest thing on this one. Make sure you keep them updated on, why do they need GFIs? I thought we were closing. I'm selling as is. Well, the reason why is because of the insurance, and just kind of educating them through this process, and keeping your communication frequent. Even if you have a tough time, you don't want to tell them something, bad news is better than no news. So just keeping them informed on what's going on. And then with real estate agents, it's easy for us to get trapped into this, and where the buyer's agent says, well, the seller doesn't like the flooring, and so you know what, instead of having this deal break, why don't we just split our commissions? Your commission's 3%. How about I'll give 1%, you give 1%. And so you need to protect yourself, and you're negotiating not only this project, this deal, but you're negotiating your commission during this process as well. And I didn't touch on this in the beginning, but when you're at the listing table with them and you're getting the listing agreement signed with them, a lot of times I find that sellers will come to you and try to negotiate your commission. And I've had one seller particularly come up and say, well, honestly, I wanted to see how you negotiate it, because the way you negotiate your commission is how you're going to negotiate my sale of my property. So now I know that you're good at negotiating, because I'm going to give you your 3% and you're going to sell my property for the amount it's worth. So they're testing you when you're going to the negotiation table, when you're going to the listing table, to tell them how everything works. Well, when you're negotiating your commission, you're also going to show them how you're negotiating your deal. So if someone says, well, I see, but can we go down to 2%? And you can say, well, this is, and explain to them, I have to do this, and this. And, 1% goes to the advertising. The other percentage goes to showing all the properties. And the last one goes to negotiating. We could, if you want to do the negotiating yourself, we could do 2%. But really, I think the 3% is what I deserve for all the things that I'm going to do to get. And you go through this process with them, and then at the end say, and also I'm negotiating with you. So how do you feel I will negotiate the deal? So kind of go through that with them to make sure you protect your commission, because you're going through a lot of different things, and you're going through and you're listing it. They are to pay for the photos and the drone photos. The seller pays for that, the inspections, the appraisals, anything that they are to do. Definitely don't offer to do that from your commission, because there is a chance you do all of this and then you have a buyer that falls through, and you have to do another buyer, might fall through, and you're going through this process. It could be a long process. You could have an easy transaction or a hard transaction. So you really want to protect your commission when you're going through this. Make sure that you are getting everything that you are putting into this as well. So I just want to make sure that I touch on that a little bit, because a lot of times people try to get you out of it. But win-win negotiations. So who wins? So that's not, I've had a lot of agents are just trying to win the battle, win the negotiation, win it. They don't care. As a good negotiator, just stay calm. And I would say the biggest thing when you're negotiating is to have your research done. Have it in front of you. Have the CMAs in front of you when you're negotiating with the buyer's agent. Well, I just don't think that this property is it's just not worth it. I understand how you feel this way, but right now in this atmosphere in real estate, it has been sitting a while, and you give them the statistics. Give that to them. Stay calm. Ask them questions. Create options. Don't just say, well, No, this property is worth it. So, oh well, for you. You want to protect your client. So you're wanting to close. Your deal is that you want to close. You want to do this for think of your seller. How would they feel? They want to close. How would they feel if you're just trying to win this battle with them and you don't close? That would be horrible because maybe they're trying to sell just so they could get to their grandkids. So you want to stay calm, emotion out of it, and always do your research. Make sure that you have more research than your component. That's how you win than your opponent. So make sure that you have more research than they do. Make sure that you know more about the price point. Make sure you know more about the house. Make sure you know more about what is going on with everything, and then you will win the negotiation table. But always try to keep your emotions out of it. And you're getting ready to do the closing table. You're in the checklist. So that's all the process you need to do is just follow those things. And basically you're the one that's negotiating. You're the ones that's working with everybody to make sure all the timelines go through, but you're not the one that needs to do it because there's too much liability and doing your own appraiser and stuff like that. So you're the one just making sure everybody follows through. And then before the closing table, you confirm the funding is ready. You're confirming that the title is ready. You can confirm that the utilities are transferred over. The TC does it, but if you didn't have a TC, make sure that your seller is closing the utilities and the buyer is putting in their name. Verify seller proceeds are ready to go. Make sure that everything's been cleared. Review the settlement statement. So I do have another video on going through the settlement statement because it is a little bit long and lengthy on that. Making sure that everything is good because you could save a lot of money for your seller, to make sure that everything's been paid out correctly. Making sure that that the prorations were done correctly. So going through that, usually title is very good, but just double checking it for them and confirm the keys. So who has the keys? It's silly, but you're ready to closing date, you're ready, you're gone. And then you're like, oh, how did they get the keys? I've had that so many times that an agent will call after the closing table. How did they get the keys? Well, the keys are in their lockbox and also you need to get the lockbox away. So you can leave the keys in the lockbox for the buyer and then go back and get your sign, get your lockbox back, get everything cleaned up for them. Or you can meet the buyer there to give them the keys, however you'd like to do it. You could also leave the keys at the title company. So those are the basic ones. But post-closing, you want to go there and you want to make sure that you keep in touch because you're going to get referrals this way. You did a nice, smooth transaction. You don't want to just drop it and be done. A lot of them keep the emails coming. Just a little reminder, hey, just making sure you remember that it's spring and it's time to pressure wash your house. Just little email reminders keeps them in front of them so that they will not only look for you for the next time they buy. They might be buying investment property, but also making sure that they are connected with you so that they can refer you. So another thing you can do is do a thank you call, request a review. You always want to do that. Make sure you take a picture with them at the closing table so you can do congratulations for them and for you. Add them to your CRM so you keep going. A home anniversary, a follow-up just saying, hey, it might be time if you're looking to change something. And always just say, hey, if you have anybody that's interested in buying and selling, you like what I did, we'd love it if you'd send them over to us. So it'd be great if you could do that as well. And one thing that is always fun, you could offer this is up to you. I used to offer all the time if you do a closing and they just bought a new home, so you're on the buyer's side, but your seller just bought a new home and you say, hey, I would love to host a home welcome party. I'll bring the wine, some little samples. You can bring all your friends and family over and we'll do a new home welcoming party. And all of their friends, all their family now know that you're the agent that closed with them. So now you bring your cards and stuff, but that's a great way to get referrals, just as an idea. So basically you want to make sure that everything is done. This is the formula. Make sure you have qualify your buyer, it's supposed to say there, verify their financing, recommend pre-listing inspections. I always want to recommend that. Complete an accurate CMA, prepare property properly. So you want to make sure too that you're decluttering, get everything done beforehand. You want to market aggressively. So get that checklist done. Make sure you have all of that in line and make sure you manage the timelines. Communicate constantly with your seller. Over communicate is even better. Get your negotiation strategy set up so that you know how to go through this. Is he really worried about the price or the time? Make sure your strategy is good. Make sure your research is done. Make sure you know all the properties around you. You may not think that it's important, but when it comes to negotiation table, it really helps. And then just make sure that you're running smooth with them. Make sure everything goes smooth. So, okay, it's 11 o'clock. That was pretty good. So do you guys have any questions at all on the listing as a listing agent?
Some of the checklists you mentioned, like towards the beginning of the process, are those or this PowerPoint available on the agent portal?
I can make it. Yeah, I can make this as available in PDF so that you could print this off. And then also this will be a video that you can go back to. But I can leave this. Are you talking about like the pre-listing preparations and probably this one here where you're doing the
Yeah.
okay. Yeah, so I can make this a PDF so you can access it at any time.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, yeah. And also I have this email that I showed you earlier um from the transaction coordinator. So I have this saved. So I'll put this on the agent portal too. So you could actually use this if you're deciding not to do use a transaction coordinator, but that'll give you how the process works. So you can use this as well. Because I think the biggest thing with this is just not knowing the structure and the timelines and things like that. But when you see the timelines and how things work, I think that really helps us to know, okay, this is really what I'm focusing on. None of that is something that you have to do as the listing agent. All of the listing agent stuff you have to do comes prior to listing. So all of your work comes prior to listing. After that, it's just negotiating and making sure this timeline flows. So, because this was actually brought to me just recently with one of the newer agents, is that they want to take a listing and they want to take a buyer, but they just can't visualize going through the process. And so I was going to do this week, and then next week I'll do the buyer side. How that works on the buyer side is a little more. Of course, you don't do anything prior to listing. Everything else is really in here, getting this done, and what happens and what are the common failures, things like that on the buyer side, so you feel comfortable with it. So, alrighty. Well, perfect. I'll get that up there, and then we'll do this. I think we're going to do these on Wednesdays. I'm finding that a lot of the agents were struggling getting here on Tuesday, so I'm going to try to do this on Wednesday and keep this going for everybody, all the trainings here. And then if you guys have any ideas for classes too, let me know. Because I'm just listening to what the agents are asking for, and I'm just putting things together. So if you have something, just let me know. Alrighty. Well, thank you guys. And if you have any questions, please text or call me anytime.
Thank you.
All right. Talk to you soon. All right. Bye.